What's up, guys? It's Kayla.
And Jim.
Welcome back to another Meteorology Monday. Now again with the previous video, this might not actually be coming out on a Monday. We have a bunch of these to put out for you guys, so we are trying to, for one of the first times in our YouTube career, put out more videos than one in a week.
We're trying to do it with a sense of urgency because we don't want this to last too many more weeks, delaying the process of posting, because it's kind of an urgent topic, hurricane preparedness.
Yeah, we're in the middle of hurricane season.
So, we want to get these as out to you as fast as possible. So, yes, we may be doing this before the following Monday.
Happy meteorology weekend. So this is video 3 in our Hurricane Preparedness mini-series, and what are we discussing in this video?
In this video, we're going to talk about understanding forecast information and get moving. These are two separate topics, but they're all in line with hurricane preparedness from the NOAA site. And again, we will be linking that down below, but we're kind of merging two into one. Yep. So that's what we're going to tackle today. But before we get started,
make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you are enjoying it along the way, and share it with a friend that might be living in a hurricane-prone area and might want to know a little bit about hurricane preparedness.
Again, as with previous videos, this is not an all-inclusive list. It's not an exhaustive list of every single bullet item, but just some highlights to discuss as talking points and to make sure that you have accurate information and are able to go out to the NOAA site and get some more information from there as well. One of the places we tend to look at for hurricane preparedness is from the National Hurricane Center. They're responsible for the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific regions for looking at storms developing, as well as working together with NOAA to send out hurricane reconnaissance aircraft and buoys. There's all sorts of things out there, sail drones. I think we're going to cover some of those things later on in the season because they're pretty exciting topics as the technology improves. Yes. But we kind of established that right up front because they have to gather the information somehow. So how they do that is satellite data and sail drones and airplanes, and then they take that information and they put that into their models. And from that, they're able to forecast what's going to happen when it comes to, let's say, storm surge, the radius of the wind, how large the storm's going to be, how fast is it going to deepen, where the wind will be in excess of hurricane force, where it will be tropical storm force. So they've got a few other models that they're putting out later this year, or some of them may have already come out by the time we do this video, and Editing Kayla will have that video linked as well. We have a brief discussion on that from a previous video.
Yes. It'll pop up in the corner over here.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and let's start taking a look at some of the information they actually crank out.
So NOAA has some great advice on which sources to look for storm information, and let's dive into that list now.
Have trusted sources of storm information. Rely on official forecasts and well-established media partners in the weather enterprise. Be cautious of sensational headlines and instead look for reliable sources to determine a storm's potential impacts.
So some of you may be aware that if you hop on to the interwebs, such as the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the TikToks these days, you might come across some alarming headlines of articles that weather people are talking about. Bear in mind who's talking about the information and double check that in their video they say that it comes from NOAA, they show the sources. There's a lot of false information out there, and then it gives meteorologists a bad name when headlines come up like death and destruction and Florida's finally gonna break off because of a hurricane, and then nothing ends up happening. So be cautious who you follow on social media and where they got their information from.
Use the official National Hurricane Center forecast. Their hurricane specialists access a variety of data, models, aircraft, satellite, to make the most accurate forecast possible. Meteorologists at local National Weather Service offices understand which locations in your area are most vulnerable to storm surge, flooding, and wind. Always check to make sure you have the latest forecast information. Make sure you have wireless emergency alerts enabled on your phone to receive warnings.
SparkNotes version, leave it to the professionals. And Joe on the internet saying that a Cat 17 hurricane is going to take out the entire eastern coast.
Cat 17. New movie.
I think we saw that movie already.
Speaking of alerts, it's very important to know the differences between the alerts that are coming out. What's a watch? What's a warning? In general, a watch is just the possibility of something happening, whereas a warning is an immediate threat. It's either occurring or it's definitely about to occur. So you want to keep those in mind when you're getting these alerts and how to decipher the difference between the two of those.
Going right along with that, let's pop up some of the official definitions of watches and warnings to show you examples again of how warnings are worse than watches. A quick recap, if you haven't seen the first video in a little bit, we talked about the impacts of water and wind and how just keep in the back of your mind that the category and size of a storm doesn't always correlate exactly to, bigger storm, bigger risk kind of thing. Even a smaller storm can bring the threat of inland flooding, wind. If you have trees in your area, the soggy ground can be pushed over by even smaller winds. So if you are farther away from the eye wall, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to feel less of the impacts.
And not only the impacts due to the storm approaching you, but also after it passes away.
Sure,
As the winds start to weaken, it's not time to let your guard down. There still could be heavy rainfall on the way. There could be some wind gusts from isolated cells outside the main core of the storm. So again, not to let your guard down as the storm passes as well. Another very important product that the National Hurricane Center puts out is the infamous cone product, which Editing Kayla is going to pop up here as an example. And let's talk about that for a little bit, because it can be a little confusing for those that don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the biggest misconceptions is that if you are outside that cone, that you're not going to feel any of the effects of the hurricane. The border of that cone is showing you the possibility and the kind of narrowed down track of where the eye of the hurricane could go. So the further left corner of that cone is still where the eye of the hurricane could go. So the effects of the wind and the rain could be felt even farther outside to the left. Same goes for the right side and the extent of it as well. So keeping an eye on the timing and the strength of the hurricane is all great, but just keep in mind that even if you are outside of that cone, the effects could still impact your area.
And you might be asking, why is it in the shape of a cone? So if you take a look at the example, you'll see where the storm is. And as you go out, you'll see that the cone widens as you get out further and further in time. And the reason is because their predictability of where that eye could be, there's a wider range depending on which model they're looking at, the physics, what the condition of the atmosphere is, its interactions with other systems going on. So there's a bigger margin of error that could occur. So what they want to do is they factor that in. So let's say in 48 hours or 72 hours, you're going to notice that the eye could be quite a bit of distance from that center line compared to where it was, say, 12 hours from its initial position, because again, the margin of error. And again, the further you go out, the wider that margin of error is going to be. And I think day 5 was something like 200 to 300 nautical mile difference potential. So they've been honing the forecasts year over year. This year they're supposed to improve on that forecast predictability in terms of the track and the path. So we'll have to see if they narrow that cone going forward in future hurricane seasons, and see as they become more predictable and better forecasted, if that cone shrinks down a little bit.
Right, and let's add one more thing. Let's throw up a spaghetti plot here, just so you guys can get an idea of all the different models showing all the different lines of the hurricanes and how the National Hurricane Center will take all these into account when creating their cone. You can see some of the spaghetti plot ones. it looks like a bowl of noodles, and some of the noodles are falling out of the bowl,
That's
some
right.
are going in the opposite direction. So there's a lot that goes into looking at this spaghetti plot and turning it into the cone that we see from the NHC.
That's right. And a quick little thing here, you might be asking, well, why are some so wildly different than the other ones? Well, again, their parameterization and physics, as part of that model, some things might be focused more on a global scale, some things focus more on dynamics associated with thunderstorms, other ones focus on hurricanes. So when you are looking at a global model, it could give the potential for steering currents. And so when you're looking at the hurricane models, are they seeing a steering current that could turn this hurricane after 48 hours? So that's why they look at a lot of different models to see, what could potentially steer the storm as it gets going.
Yeah, and if you guys would like to see a video dedicated just to understanding models, we would love to do a video on that. Let us know. There's a lot that goes into it. Some models do this, some models do that, and how do we as meteorologists take that and turn it into useful information for the general public? Be a cool video to do. Another tech side of Meteotech if you're interested in that. Let us know in the comments. Let's hear from Noah and see what they have to say about this topic.
One important thing to note is that impacts from any storm can be felt far from the storm's center, even well inland and outside the forecast cone. The Hurricane Center's forecast cone shows the probable forecast track of the center of the storm. This means that the storm's center will probably travel somewhere within the cone's boundaries. Historically, the storm's center has remained within the forecasted cone roughly 2/3 of the time. The cone does not represent the size of the storm in any way. So now that you understand the forecast information, now it's time to get moving. And what is the get moving part? Let's take a look at what Noah has to say. When a storm is forecast to impact your area, take action immediately to be ready. Ideally, longer-term preparedness actions such as having disaster supplies and an evacuation plan will have already been done before hurricane season, when the stores are stocked and time is on your side. When a storm threatens, there's a lot more to do.
So some of the things in this list are covered in our 2 previous preparedness videos, but they include things such as prepare your home, come up with an evacuation plan, make sure you have enough supplies, take care of your pets, know where you're going, develop a communication plan, and if you want to hear about those in more detail, check out our first 2 videos if you haven't already. So there you have it, understanding the hurricane forecast information and a little snippet of how to get moving afterwards. Again, if you like what you saw today, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and check out the link to the NOAA site where we got a bunch of this information from down in the description box. Down there you'll also find, as always, the links to our school of weather, our website, and our social media, which pop up here. Check us out over there. We post a bunch of cool storm chasing things and behind the scenes weather adventures. If you want to follow us over there, it's a fun time. Until next time, I'm Kayla.
And I'm Jim.
Thanks for watching.
And we'll see you at the next Meteorology Monday.
That's not going to be a Meteorology Monday.
It's not going to be a Meteorology Monday. Who knows? It may be.
See you in the next Meteorology Wednesday. Who knows?
That's right.